she is. Anywhere is where she's from. Anything is what she'll be. Anything as long as it's mine. And the door it opens way back in. Or is it way back out? Any place is where she'll be. Any place she'll see you from. Lies and secrets become your world. Anytime, anywhere, she takes me away. And that climbs up the steps one by one to give you the rose that's been burned by her sun. Point me to the sky above. I can't get there on my own. Walk me to the graveyard, dig up her I have seen the demon's face. I have heard of her death place. I fall down on my knees and pray to them. Horrible things that took her away. And then climbs up the steps one by one to give you the rose that's been burned by her sun. Point me to the sky above. I can't get there on my own. Walk me to the graveyard, dig up her bones. Point me to the sky above. I can't get there on my own. Walk me to the graveyard, dig up her
Dig Up Her Bones, man. If you haven't seen the video, you got to see the video, man. Go to YouTube, watch it. Epic video. For that, we hear Bad Religion, and the Damned started off the set. We're 3 minutes late. I don't know if anybody even knows, because you don't know until I post the link. But yeah, we had some technical difficulties. Had to reboot the shit. But you are tuned to Widdershins. Radio Fear Spiritual Side. A twisted approach to the left-hand path, so twisted. I got a message in the inbox, I think for last week's show. Somebody says, "Oh, the left-hand path. So you guys Satanists?" Hold on. Stop the presses. Uncle Birch has to vent for a second. Being apparently the only fucking person that remembers what the fucking left-hand path and the right-hand path are, were, and have been. But that's the majority of my career, the long-term memory, remembering a bunch of witchcraft that everybody else forgot. Without that, I'd have nothing in my bag of tricks, I guess. Now, those of you that are new to paganism, new to witchcraft, new to magic, whatever those magical communities you fall into, if you have not gone back and listened to Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven since you joined, you need to do that. You need to do that. Because I'm sure when you were a kid, the song made no sense. To most people, it's just a bunch of gibberish. But to a pagan, no. Song speaks volumes and volumes of pagan lore. And they were absolutely pagan. So, you know, as a matter of fact, I just saw that Jimmy Page is selling the Aleister Crowley house that he's held for decades and decades and decades. He bought Aleister Crowley's house. And I thought Ozzy owned it at one time. I don't know. Maybe it's changed hands. I don't know. But it's up for sale. And I saw that if Jimmy Page selling it, I think that's what the story said. But at any rate, there are two paths you can go by. But in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. This was a reference to the left-hand path and the right-hand path. Now, this ignorant listener, and I'm sorry, I'm not calling you stupid, okay? Some people, when I use the word ignorant, they get very offended on the witchcraft pages. Ignorant just means you don't fucking know. You don't know. You're lacking knowledge in this thing. It doesn't mean you're stupid. Then you'd be like, ignorant and stupid. Doesn't mean you're stupid when I call you ignorant. Ignorant means you lack the knowledge. And most people do lack the knowledge because the Satanists, a long time ago, latched onto the term left-hand path, claimed it as their own. They also called themselves witches and claimed, many other things, the same ritual tools as were common in Wicca. But it was not theirs. The left-hand path existed before the Satanists chose that as their rallying cry. But it seems that in general witchcraft, that belief is prevalent. The left-hand path means Satanism, or whatever you want to call it, black magic, whatever. But Satanism specifically, because the Satanists call themselves the left-hand path. Satanists call themselves a lot of things that is not their things, like witch. Witch was not their term, but they borrowed that anyways. And I don't have a problem with the Satanists. I have a problem with the ignorance within the craft of the original terminology of the two paths. And I know a bunch of my students listen to this show. All of my students listen to this show. And you already know this because you already heard me rant about this. And if you've been on my YouTube channel, you heard me rant about this. And I know when you heard me rant about this, you said, God damn, I've never heard anybody say any of that. What the fuck is this shit that Uncle Bert is pulling out of his ass here? With a long memory. I've done a lot of work in my life to destroy my short-term memory. And now pot's legal, so I destroy it more and more and more. But my long-term memory, with regards to witchcraft, is stellar, and I remember shit that nobody fucking remembers, and that makes my craft special because I'm talking about a bunch of old shit that nobody knows about. The left-hand path and the right-hand path were traditional components of witchcraft. The left-hand path's symbol was the inverted pentagram with the spirit point down. The right-hand path's symbol was the upright pentagram with the spirit point pointed up. In pentagram terms, as I just taught one of my classes, in the language of symbology, if you flip a symbol, if you reverse a symbol, you reverse its meaning. The basics of it were, with the spirit point up, it meant spirit over the flesh, a hallmark of the right-hand path. With the spirit point down, it symbolized flesh over the spirit, hallmark of the left-hand path. Other hallmarks include the left-hand path believed in serving the self. And that's why you will still run into arguments. You will still run into people on the noob pages saying it's not okay to do magic for personal gain. Because that's a right-hand path philosophy that was really big back in the day until enough right-hand path people found themselves in adverse poverty and unable to help anybody because they never did any magic for personal gain. But that was the belief. And I have coined it over the years, and many pagans, when Star Wars first came out, pointed to all of the pagan stuff in Star Wars, even down to the very force itself, the force of all things, the vibration of the entire universe that connects all things. That was pagan. There was a pagan idea that no other religion had on this planet. But also the Sith and the Jedi. The Sith served the self, the Jedi served others. It was a right-hand path and left-hand path thing, and pagans back in the day, they noticed that right away. It was like, they're using part of our mythos here in this movie, and, that makes us like the movie even more. Traditionally, the left-hand path had a difference in the belief of God than the right-hand path. That's another hallmark. The left-hand path believed that the god, the goddess, all that is, resided within us, within ourselves. As about, so, or as above, so below, as without, so within. Hermetics, right? Right? My students know what I'm fucking talking about right there. So they believed that the gods dwelled within them. So serving the self was serving the gods. The right-hand path believed that the gods were external forces outside the self, and hence serving the external, serving others, was the hallmark of the right-hand path. Now, as I'm saying this, some of you studious people out there are going, well, wait a minute, I kind of hear both out there now. Yes. People still talk about the left-hand path and right-hand path. Noobs will talk about it, the good guys and the bad guys. And the ignorant will talk about, Satanism and Wicca, just left and the right. None of these are accurate. They were philosophies within witchcraft that were diametrically opposed to the other philosophies at the time the philosophies were expressed. We're in 2019 now. Over time, your Uncle Birch, whatever the hell you call me on this show, I have watched those philosophies integrate and become one. And it tends to be, they tend to be generally held by most people, even within Wicca. Even within a lot of Wicca. There's service to the self, service to others. The gods are outside, the gods are inside. They are both. They're both, and we do both. Of course the left-hand path felt more free to throw on people and curse them than the Wiccans. And, that makes sense. But I see even within a lot of Wicca, they're embracing the ideas of self-defense in these days, which is basically, magical warfare. So in my time in the craft, I have watched these two paths merge, and the dominant force within witchcraft and Wicca tends to have adopted both of these philosophies as the whole. Yet, people still talk about the left-hand path, the right-hand path, like they're opposed. And, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. No. Ignorance. They had differing philosophies within the craft that over time became one. We all tend to, those of us that talk about gods and goddesses, we tend to talk of them as within us and without us, like hermetics, as without, so within, like it was originally intended. Hermetics shows us two paths. The symbol of hermetics would be the caduceus. The caduceus is symbolized by two snakes wound around a pole in opposition to each other. And they did represent the left-hand path, the right-hand path, or the positive and the negative of whatever concept is on the table at the time. Hermetics recognized the polarity, and that within everything, both of those things existed. In other words, within love is hate. These are two of the same components. And in old school magic, the old school people would tell us you need to both exist. You need to bind down the action not wanted. You bound down the snake you didn't want. That's what the caduceus was about. The middle pole was what selected which side you were going to go. Now, most of us know of witchcraft and Wicca because, and we have to give him credit, the work of Gerald Gardner. Now, within Gerald Gardner's original system, the first degree initiation symbol was a point-up pentagram. Second degree initiation symbol was an inverted pentagram. And then I believe third degree was a triangle, and then on and on and on from there. And if you looked at the rituals involved, there were elements of the right-hand path philosophies in the first degree initiation, and then elements of the left-hand path philosophies in the second degree initiation, because that is what the inverted pentagram represented. Flesh over the spirit. And the opposite was the opposite. So, in the very core of Wicca, as we know it, were the right-hand path and the left-hand path displayed together, and I think the subtlety of the old craft is the whole problem there. People don't do subtlety. They need you to bluntly hit them over the head and tell them what these fucking things mean. They don't do much introspection and reflection. They don't figure out what these philosophies mean to them. They just run with the whatever textbook definition they're given, and then it varies from textbook to textbook. So all of this to the gentleman that asked if we were Satanists because we refer to the left-hand path. Now, the majority of my witchcraft career has been right-hand path, the service of others, to the extent of, I did at least 20 years pro bono. I taught for free. Eventually moved up to accepting donations, which is never good. The really good people don't know what to donate, and the other people are just looking for something cheap, and nobody ever donates what they should donate. Now I do. I tip well. That's the donation right there. That would be my tip. I remember one time with teaching a student, teaching with a student teacher. I recall one student who's still very close to me made a donation of mushrooms. Just stuffed them in the jar. It was probably the last time I did mushrooms, really. But yeah, people would donate other things too. But I did enough of that. I served entire magical communities and created entire magical communities without getting nothing for myself. And I really had to learn how to embrace the left-hand path after that. And I'm embracing it well. I gets mine. I don't work for free. I don't teach for free. I still do give some teachings out for free, but my real core teachings, no, that you pay for that. The law of exchange, even though I was taught the law of exchange as a child, I wasn't exactly practicing it. The law of exchange, we still find expressed in wort cunning, herb magic, but we don't find it expressed in most of witchcraft anymore, and it was a standard, all-encompassing philosophy for everything. Like I teach my students, the things that we learn in witchcraft repeat over and over and over. They're like waves. And if we learn a symbol here, we're going to find that same symbol here, there, and the other place, repeating a larger version of the first thing we taught you about that symbol. And that's how we know these things are universal. So I had to, I had to embrace that for myself, and I think I do a much better job getting mine. Paying my bills, getting food on the table, that kind of thing, than teaching a bunch of ingrateful fucks for free. Sorry, that's the way it was a lot of times. The bargain hunters in the world. It's like you ask for a good faith donation, and they don't act in good faith because most people don't. That's the real world, kids. Sorry to bring it down. But you are tuned to Widdershins. We're going to do some news tonight. That was just like my opening rant, I guess. Got some news, got some views. got some rants about the news, which the regular listeners will know. That means I had no material. Had nothing to do the show on today, but that's never stopped us before. You don't need material to do a show. You need personality. You need charisma. You need a chip on your shoulder. We got that over here at Widdershins. We've done plenty of shows with no material, and there's been no lack in the show's content. So, there is a lot going on in the spiritual and magical worlds out there, and I've dug up a few stories that'll hopefully be entertaining for you. So I'm gonna play a bit of music, and we'll be back. Widdershins.
Froggy Fresh 2012. Yeah, we back up in this. Y'all already know. Cause I am the baddest of them all. If you ain't about money, then I don't mess with y'all. Y'all think I don't get girls, cause I ain't very tall. If she see my stacks, I bet you that she calls. You know that I am the baddest of them all. If you ain't about money, then I don't mess with y'all. Y'all think I don't get girls, cause I ain't very tall. If she see my stacks, I bet you that she calls. I had to fight my whole life. I could beat you up even if you had 1,000 knives. Even if you had infinity knives, I would punch you up into the air like a kite. I bet you sleep with the night light, cause you're scared of the dark, cause you stink like a fart. Well, I light your fart on fire with my rounds. You think I won't? I do it all the time. I bet I got more money than Jay-Z. Compared to me, Jay-Z is lazy. Plus Beyonce thinks that I'm cute. It's okay, Beyonce, I think you're cute too. I made out with so many girls. I made out with every girl in the world. I might look small, but I'm not. I don't care if you're big, I'll fight you. Well, I do know that I am the baddest of them all. If you ain't about money, then I don't mess with y'all. Y'all think I don't get girls, cause I ain't very tall. If she see my stats, I bet you that she calls. Cause I am the baddest of them all. If you ain't about money, then I don't mess with y'all. Y'all think I don't get girls, cause I ain't very tall. If she see my stacks, I bet you that she calls. I have 400 cars. I have 400 scars and 400 guitars. I have 400 houses. I have 400 mouses and 400 houses. Bet you I can dance better than you. I bet you don't know 2 + 2. It's 4, it's 4. Now go and shut the door, cause nobody wants to see your face no more. I'm tough as nails, you're slower than a snail. I beat up every single person in jail. I dare you to try and punch me. My face is so hard you'll say, ouch, you crunched me. I fought 2 lions and won. And I don't even carry a gun. But I never run. But I never run. But I never but I never run. You know that I am the baddest of them all. If you ain't about money, then I don't mess with y'all. Y'all think I don't get girls, cause I ain't very tall. If she see my stats, I bet you that she calls. You know that I am the baddest of them all. If you ain't about money, then I don't mess with y'all. Y'all think I don't get girls, cause I ain't very tall. If she see my stacks, I bet you that she calls. Froggy Fresh. I already told you back up in this 2012 to infinity. Get out of here. Peace.
Froggy Fresh, the artist formerly known as Krispy Kreme on Widdershins Radio. Was it Joy Division before that? A chat room. Chat room is happening tonight. You need to get over to Spreaker.com/user/Widdershins and follow us. You never know when we're going to go on the air randomly. Because we have this large package, as I've told you before, where we can do that. And sometimes we do that. And you're never going to know. I mean, we can go on the air 3 hours per day, unlimited times. In theory, we can be on all day. We just have to reboot every 3 hours. And, maybe if we have no life someday, we'll do that. And there have been times, I think there was time we did like 9 hours just to see if we could do it. And we could do it. And if we do that, or if there's something happening, something newsworthy, and you're not following, I don't know, man. You're not going to know. I mean, you can be listening to us on iHeartRadio or Tumblr or SoundCloud or one of those other places. I don't even know if you can follow us there. I think you got to get over to Spreaker.com/user/Widdershins and follow us there. And then you can get in the chat room where stuff's happening. And as usual, people are asking, where's Marta? Marta's here. She's busy over here. She's got her thinking cap. Yeah, she's got her thinking cap on, typing. You can probably hear some clicking in the background over the traffic noise. That's Marta. She's doing her thing. Let's see. And Craig, I haven't seen in the chat room before, but Craig was talking about, it may sound woohoo. I think it was the word he used, but energies do tend to peak around Easter. Well, yeah, Craig, not so much Easter. Ostara. It's spring. It's spring. I remember, my early studies, they say that, for early magicians, before they had this whole 8-spoked wheel of the year thing, it was the dark half of the year, the light half of the year, death and life. Death and life. We had to have those. Then people, over time, they started to recognize, different quarters of the seasons and stuff, and they added different spokes to the wheels. But yeah, everything's alive. The plants are hopefully blooming. They're growing up. They got their winter's rain, and now the spring sun is stronger. Well, for us too. Yeah, we don't have our feet stuck in the dirt, but those energies affect us too. As I've gone on in witchcraft, and maybe age too, the urge to hibernate during winter has grown. I need more naps during the wintertime than I do during the springtime. I need to sleep in the mornings and shit. Some days, I take the kid to school and it's really cold, and I'll get home and crawl back in bed and take a nap. I do less of that in the spring, and so yes, part of it's I'm getting older, but the other half is like when you connect yourself to the natural cycles of the earth, when you embroil yourself in the energies of nature. There's a saying, and they say she changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. My research over the years has been, that's true. And what she first does, she changes you. You start tapping into nature, and nature changes you to operate more like nature. And that's how you're able to use the laws of nature to manifest your will. You become more like her. You operate more like her. Your cycles are more like hers. And then you're better able to affect these things. And for those that are disconnected from the cycles of nature, and when they first jump into these kind of things, it can be pretty overwhelming. It can take you on a ride for a while until you learn, like Old Birch says every day, on one of these noob witchcraft pages, a witch takes the reins, not the ride. We are not supposed to be willy-nilly driven by every star conjunction or opposition or what have you that happens. We should not, as witches, be whining every time Mercury goes retrograde and blaming Mercury for all of the world's ills. That's Satan. Satan was supposed to be blamed for all those, not Mercury. Mercury was about travel and communications. And that is a thing. And Mercury can fuck up travel and communication. But over my witch lifetime, I see people blame Mercury for every fucking thing that happens every fucking time Mercury goes retrograde. Hey, guess what, kids? Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. We're the third planet from the sun. We have a longer orbit. Mercury has a shorter orbit. So that means that we will pass by Mercury often. And when we pass by, that's retrograde. That's all it is. We have passed by Mercury in our orbit around the sun. And that's what gets people all wigged out. That's going to fuck up your life? Really? No. Witch takes the reins, not the ride. We learn about the forces in the universe, the forces of nature, the forces in our solar system, so we can direct those forces in accordance with our will. Not just so we can be sucked along with them. We don't jump into a stream without an oar, at the very least. At any rate, that's not even newsworthy yet. So, in the news, the biggest thing right now has got to be the fire at Notre Dame, the cathedral at Notre Dame. The majority of it burned. There were conflicting reports yesterday, but I think we've narrowed it down to, the accurate reports are that all of the treasures that were said to be contained within the cathedral had been saved, including Jesus' crown of thorns. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. First of all, how'd they get their crown of thorns? The Romans kicked down. The Romans give them the fucking crown of thorns. And how did they keep the crown of thorns intact for 2,000 years? I know of no plant matter that's been dead for 2,000 years that doesn't turn to dust. I don't understand how they did it. Maybe they're hermetically sealed in plastic. I don't know. But apparently, Jesus' crown of thorns was held within the cathedral and was saved. There was a shroud, some sort of shroud from some saint that was there.
Really? I never heard that.
I saw a shroud of something there, and it wasn't the shroud that Jesus had on. It was some saint's name that apparently was kept there. It was a crown of thorns, and I don't even know what the other treasures were. But,
well, you do, because I told you. You don't remember.
Okay, wait, so can you remind me? I'm trying to remember all of it.
Piece of the cross.
Piece of the cross. Oh, yeah, and the nail.
Yes.
The nail, which Marta showed me the nail. It definitely looks Roman, but man, that's a crazy nail. I can't imagine driving that nail into a piece of wood and not splitting the hell out of the piece of wood. It looks really large, rectangular. I mean, I know early nails were rectangular, but that Roman nail, that's just gnarly as hell. But yeah, okay, so apparently a piece of the cross, a nail from the cross, and then countless pieces of art that apparently saved. This one, when Marta told me this one blew me away. At first, I didn't understand it. They said that they had removed the statues 3 days prior to because there was this renovation of the spire and stuff. 4 days. And Marta told me that, and then later I saw that the statues they were referring to, I didn't realize, were the gargoyles. Now, way back in the day, in my early witch day, I was a gargoyle fiend. I studied everything about gargoyles. I had gargoyles all over my house. I lived in a scale model of a castle in Long Beach that had gargoyles on it. There's probably, more than the place looking like a castle. The fact that it had gargoyles over my front door was more reason than anything else that I rented that fucking place. But the gargoyles were said to protect the cathedral. And, we see the Hunchback of Notre Dame. He's like hanging out up by those gargoyles. I think he sings a song up there or something like that. Classic gargoyles that I remember seeing. They were protecting the church, and they've been removed 4 days prior to the blaze. Fucking gargoyles worked, y'all. Gargoyles were doing their job. Or was it 800 years? I think I heard the place been there. I don't even know the full time scale, but those gargoyles were working 4 days before they removed them to do these renovations on the thing, and the place burned up. Now, pagans can sometimes be assholes. I see a lot of people being assholes. They're glad the church burned down because they have some beef with the Catholic Church, blah, 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 blah. I'm not really going to talk about that. I would not like it if Christians, celebrated when one of our temples burned down, even though they did back in the day. But I just don't entertain that. It's a priceless architectural... it's an artifact. The temple is a piece of history. I respect history, even the histories of the people I don't like. But the thing is, again, this is something Marta was telling me today, is like there's all these people donating millions and millions of dollars to rebuild the cathedral that the Catholic Church owns. They're rich. They're the richest government on the planet. They have been since Rome turned Catholic. They're beyond a military force. The Catholic Church exists in probably at least 25% of the countries on the planet. And in those countries, they are sovereign. They are their own government. They are their own military. They are their own secret service. And they amass a huge mass of wealth. They don't need your fucking money. The black churches burned in the South by the Trump supporter need your fucking money. Flint could use some drinking water still. And you got Americans sending money to rebuild this cathedral that the Catholic Church, it wouldn't even make a dent in their budget to rebuild that church. And probably the biggest amount of wealth amassed on the planet. They're bigger than governments. They're bigger than kingdoms. They exist in several kingdoms. And they have since the Middle Ages. They're like their own government. And probably tougher than our government. Their secret service probably take you out better than our fucking government could. They don't need your help. It is a tragedy. Definitely. They don't need donations. It's ridiculous. And I don't know. Pagans sending donations, I think, is somehow even worse, even though, I don't have a problem with their temple. I think it's a tragedy that it burned. But there's so much going on in our own world right here. Those churches burned down just recently by the Trump supporter. I don't even know his name. I mean, you have that story on my desk. Those were historic black churches in the South. Had a long history. Our versions of cathedrals, I guess. I don't know. But those should be rebuilt. People should be putting money towards that. Should be donating towards that. Any rate, that's a huge story. Everybody's talking about it. And some people are just, I understand a lot of pagans are butthurt about the whole Catholic thing. And, I spent a large portion of my pagan life like that as well. But as time goes on, we have access to more information. We're able to learn more things. And what we learned over time was the amount of paganism within Catholicism. And then over time, we learned what pagan tribes they stole those things from while killing them. That's still the Catholic Church. They still did that. It seems over time, as I watched the story, the Catholic Church was trying to legitimize itself by killing off the other people that had that same information. All the way back to Jesus being born near the winter solstice. That was specifically chosen by the Catholic Church at the Council of Nicaea. At the Council of Nicaea is a fascinating thing. If you haven't read it, you need to read about the Council of Nicaea. They had a stack of holy books meant to be in the Bible that reached the very ceiling of the room. And we end up with this small handful of books. The Gnostic Gospels, Dead Sea Scrolls, all those things that we know about now, those were all tossed out specifically by the Catholic Church because it didn't fit their doctrine. There were things in those Gospels that spoke to other pagan practices and things that they didn't want to practice. But at the Council of Nicaea, it specifically recorded in plain English. Well, okay, it's probably Latin at the time, but now it's translated into English. That at the Council of Nicaea, they agreed that they had no data to fix the birth date of Jesus. They had no information to figure out when his birth date was. And in their own language, to further legitimize the story of Jesus, and I quote, they are attaching the birth date of Jesus to the birth date associated with the birth of God since the dawn of time. That would be the sun god, that would be the pagan god that attaches Jesus to the entire solar god mythos. And in their words, they did that to further legitimize the tale of Jesus. And upon doing that, they had to adopt a huge amount of pagan mythos to make the thing happen. To this day, one of the most common Christmas carols sung is "Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly," a song entirely of Druid imagery, entirely of Druid symbols, nothing Christian in the song whatsoever, and very specific Druid rituals mentioned in the song. I'm not going to go into that hugely here because I've talked about that in other places. So over time, I adjusted what I used to say about the Catholic Church. And, my parents tried to raise me Catholic. That gave me even more of a problem with Catholicism. But over time, I coined a little saying that we would like to thank the Catholic Church for providing a convenient place for our people to hide all those years while they were out in the world hunting for us. Pagans were hiding in the church. Many forms of paganism survived, disguised as Catholicism, which was easy to do because the Catholics adopted all of our shit. They took our gods, they made them into saints. Most of our goddesses, they made them into demons. The holidays associated with the saints had to be drastically similar to the holidays associated with the pagan gods. And I'm sure I just recently mentioned this on this show because it just happened, but Saint Bridget, one of the few exceptions in the goddesses that got to become saints. The worship of Saint Bridget is exactly the same as the worship of Bridget. She has a holy day, February 1st. Some people celebrate it on February 2nd. And in Ireland, to this day, the way to celebrate St. Bridget's Day is to make a pilgrimage to the top of the hill of Tara, and you tear off a little piece of cloth off of your clothing and put a prayer into that cloth and tie it on a hawthorn tree, an ancient hawthorn tree that's been there since, the dawn of time. That's the same exact ritual as Bridget. Saint Bridget and Bridget have the same holy day, the same rituals associated with them. There's varying mythos that the Christians add later, like Bridget's cross. That's something they made up later. But essentially the same thing. Same thing with the majority of the pagan gods. Their holy days tend to be the holy days of the pagan gods. And those will now become the holy days of the Catholic saints that are associated with those gods. They keep a lot of their stuff intact. Way back, all the way to Rome, when Rome becomes Catholic, they develop a process, or they develop this idea of tearing down pagan holy sites and building churches on them. When they do that, Christianity, Catholicism, has become the religion of the nobles, the religion of the upper class. And the usage at that time of the words pagan and likewise heathen were classist terms. Heathen meant somebody that lived on the heath, which means a hill. In our language to this day, it would mean hillbilly. Pagan, somebody that lives in the woods. Somebody that lives in nature. The Pagani. That means hick in our modern language. That's basically how they were using those words then. They're classist terms because Christianity had become a religion of the nobles, and kings were rewriting the Bible and shit. So let's see, where am I going with this? So the people building the churches were not the nobility. They were not the rich. They were the working class, the peasants, if you will. The peasants were clinging to their old gods. This was tenacious throughout history. They just wouldn't let go. I mean, half of what the Catholic Church finally was trying to come up with was other ways other than sword point conversion and burning people at the stake to get people to convert. And one of the ways they came up with it, we'll build these nice churches on their old holy sites. They're used to going there to worship, and then inside those holy sites, we'll have saints that are depictions of their old gods. This will make it much easier for them to convert. Well, furthermore, the people building the churches, the peasants, the pagans, they saw fit to incorporate their gods into the very construction. And I would think there had to have been some pagan architects down the line. It's like somebody didn't just chisel foliate masks and goddesses with fruit for hair into the churches. They had to be designed that way. So some of the architects themselves had to have been pagan to have designed them that way. But so now we get these churches with pagan gods and goddesses built into the very foundation, the very walls of the churches. And then inside the churches, they have depictions of the pagan gods as saints. Made it really easy, but what happens is it turns around and it bites the Catholics in the ass. It makes it easy for pagans to maintain their paganism while appearing to be Christian. And two countries where we see that really clearly is Ireland and Italy. Some of the paganisms that we have in Ireland and Italy some of the Catholicisms that we have in Ireland and Italy are so damn pagan it's not even funny, retaining the majority of their beliefs. So then, as time goes on, varying HERs. Voodoo does it. Santeria does it. The varying different versions of Santeria do it. This whole saint thing. They have a saint equivalent for every Orisha, making it easy for them to worship in the Catholic ways. And, these are slave religions. These are people dominated by the Christians and the Catholics. They had to. They pretty much had to disguise their practice. But they're able to keep a lot of their practices relatively intact by cloaking them in Catholicism, as much paganism did. So, I, Uncle Birch, like to thank the Catholics for providing our people a nice building to hang out in and cool candles to burn while they were out there hunting witches. And I don't know who they found out there, because the witches, smart ones, were in the Catholic Church, burning candles, burning incense, and worshiping saints and shit. And saints, angels, whole lot of Mary, whole lot of Holy Spirit. Not so much Jesus, though. All right, let's see what else we got. I had some other interesting news here. Let's see. What was this one? Oh, cookie policy. Get off my screen. No, I don't want to open in the app. Jesus Christ. Now this, I barely read this story. I try not to read too much of them before I go on the air, because I want to be shocked with you. What I'll be surprised. But in recent years, I don't know, 15 years or so, as time goes on, I develop a fascination with Baltic witchcraft, Russian witchcraft, because of the clown to the right of me over here is typing. There's so much that she can't know about her culture. I can't know, because most people don't know. There are no books that I know of written on any Baltic witchcraft. There's a couple websites nowadays. There's a Facebook page with some really fascinating information. We see some groups reclaiming their old ways and coming out, celebrating pretty much the same holidays we do in Russia and around there. They're allowed to now. But there's so much just absolutely wiped out during the times of communism that nobody will ever know. strange little practices that I learned from that Marta grew up with. Looked like witchcraft to me. There's superstitions that look like witchcraft too. Everybody had them. Everybody had their paganism, but slowly over time, we learn more about, people are digging up the paganisms of that part of the world. And, there's very few left. Very few left. In recent years, the Nordic countries and the Germanic countries, the Ossetians, they're digging up their roots. A lot of that stuff hadn't been dug up for a while, but the countries that were Russia, a lot to dig up still. A lot to dig up, and there's people working at it. So this one called, what was this? Rusalka Week.
Which, most people don't even know this, but Rusalka means mermaid. I've seen people use it incorrectly, like how they use Baba Yaga incorrectly.
Yeah.
So I don't know what people think it is, but it means mermaid.
Like that one. Baba Yaga, I had no idea who she was, but I had her statue in my house because she was just so cool, flying around in a cauldron and shit. And I sold a lot of them.
It's a generic term for witch.
Yeah.
Baba Yaga is how you pronounce it, not Baba Yaga. It's Baba Yaga, and it just means witch. It's not a specific name of a person, which is how we treat it here.
See? Now, Marta's over here doing her own thing, but when she chimes in, it's gold. As gold. But did you know that shit? You did not know that shit. Don't you tell me you knew that. You did not know that. Did not know that. I did know that because Marta taught me. but yeah, Baba Yaga was some witch that flew around in a cauldron. I thought that was kind of cool. And that's pretty much all I knew about her. But so yeah, okay, so Rusalka. We know what that means now. Let's see. This comes from the Black Moon Coven at aminoapps.com. I don't know how I found this damn story. While witches are preparing for Beltane, Slavic witches are getting ready for Rusalka Week. During the first week in June or the last week of May, depending on where you're from, big country, right? Or big piece of land. What is Rusalka? Usually depicted as a beautiful girl with flowers in her hair. Sitting by a body of water, this creature is the spirit... Oh, sitting by a body of water? Maybe that's it? I don't know.
Mermaids sit by bodies of water, sure.
Yeah. The creature is the spirit of an unmarried girl that happened to drown. Now she's out for the blood of any man. It's like Sedna.
Well, it's like the Little Mermaid.
Yeah. Well, really, mermaids, they were evil. No man could resist the beautiful temptress. If a man is unfortunate enough to greet one, he will follow her into the water. Okay, so it's kind of getting there. It's bleeding over.
The way that I understand it, too, it just means mermaid. It's not anybody who's out to kill anybody and it has revenge or any of that stuff.
Yeah, but...
That's not how I learned it.
But if you think about it, I mean, people like romanticize it, but ultimately that is what Western mermaids did too. They lured sailors to their death. Let's see. Stop it, dog. Quit trying to jump on my lap. If a man was unfortunate to greet one, he will follow her into the water where she will tangle him in her hair and drown him. Similar to a siren. Then they enjoy to sing and dance naked in the forest and in the water. The Rusalka hate women out of jealousy, so women would hang scarves and linens to tempt the creatures from stealing their men. How we honor them during this week-long Sabbath of the Rusalka, the female water spirits is what they call it here. We're said to leave the rivers and go into the forests and fields. Okay. Birch was considered a source of vegetation and power, so homes and barns were decorated with birch branches. A special birch tree was selected by the village and decorated Wednesday. The tree was cut down. No males were allowed to touch the sacred tree. Girls would sing and dance around the tree, similar to a maypole. This would be a fertility ritual. Thursday of this week, funerals were performed for all those who were not properly buried. Sunday of this week, women performed memorial rites for the graves of loved ones, and closing this festival, the birch tree was thrown into the rivers as a gift to Rusalka for their protection of their waters. Cannot wait to celebrate the honor of this folk creature. What are my Slavic witches doing for the celebration? So that, you may not even get it, but based on what Marta just told me and what I just read in this story, it fascinates me. Though the land is very different, the climate's very different. I mean, Russia expands several climates, several time zones. I heard somewhere 10. I don't even know. I thought I heard 10 time zones. But a lot of people in different regions of the world practicing different rituals. And what I hear of those rituals that just describe the similarities between the maypole, the fact that it's fertility rituals are happening this time of year, that women were allowed to do these certain rituals and men weren't allowed to do same thing. Like the maypole was a man's ritual and the women did something else. The maypole represented God's penis. So the men danced around the maypole. That's how it went. That's how it worked. That's the thing that gets me all the time. I want to hear a whole lot less about cultural appropriation. What I find fascinating is the cultural integration. People all over the world that have not had contact with each other even, indigenous cultures come up with similar ideas. And it makes sense. It's spring. Of course, there are fertility rituals. Doesn't make sense in Australia because they're down under, but all these other ones, the similarity in the rituals and the ideas that people come up with that have no real connection to each other, and even to the fact that some cultures never had contact. We're continually digging up cultures in the rainforest that nobody's ever had contact with. They have similar ideas. They have a lot of similar ideas to all of the pagans all over the world have come up with. My ancestors said that the craft was heard on the wind and seen in the wild. If that is a fact, the wild is the same all over. It varies. They have different cycles here and there. And the wind is the same all over. The wind speaks of ideas blowing around. There's a lot to that statement that those old people once said. I pondered that. Heard on the wind, seen in the wild. But even over in Russia, you've got those same ideas, and they survived. That's even more to me. It fascinates me when a paganism survives in a persecution culture, like, a paganism that survives in a Catholic country. That fascinates the fuck out of me. Paganism that survived through communism, that's hugely fascinating. There's so much that has to be dug up over there still, and I'm so fascinated to learn that thing. I'm never threatened when I run into this stuff. Like other people, it's like they see something they don't know and it threatens their fucking ego. It's like, I am looking for things I don't know. I know too much magic. I know too much paganism. I hunger for new worlds to conquer. Russians, keep learning more and teaching me more about your festivals, your holidays. I find them fascinating. And of course, Marta always likes to say, how she's of Viking blood. So absolutely. Those ideas I see in their paganism. I see a lot of those similar things to Asatru and Odinism. Those things carry through. But, Vikings spread their shit around. There's a lot of places. And when cultures did that, when they spread their shit around, it survived. That's why things that came to us through Rome survived. Rome didn't conquer other people's gods. Rome appropriated them. Rome appropriated everything. But Rome would take in the gods of the conquered make them their own gods, and then carry them to the next land where they would war again. And then those gods would be ingrained in that culture too. Vikings did that too. So the Viking culture we find in all of the lands they touch. Definitely, Scotland and Ireland too. You find those things. But yeah, I'm fascinated by those things. And I'm so fascinated, I'm going to take a bathroom break and play you a song. And let me see what I haven't played in a while. You are tuned to Widdershins Radio for your spiritual side. You can find me at thesacredgrovestore.com. You can find me at gumroad.com/witchschool. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. Oh, there we go. I'll play you some Dan Byrne. I'll be back.
I'm as cranky as a bitch. All I wanna do is spit. Nothing to eat after that feast. We're getting laid regular at least. And I don't wanna hurt you, so stay out of my way today. Every 28 days women bleed, unless they get too much of your seed. A man gotta flush themselves out too, but it's always sexual when they do. You women, you just stick some pad inside. Men gotta practically fall in fucking love. Beautiful trees, beautiful trees, beautiful trees, beautiful trees. As I've been around the bush, that's bad luck. I asked you in cause I wanna fuck. I asked you out cause I was hungry. But now I'm basically just tired. You don't have to leave, you can stay here. After all, this is still a love song. Beautiful trees, beautiful trees, beautiful trees, beautiful trees.
From the cradle bars comes a beckoning voice that sends you spinning. You have no choice. You hear laughter cracking through the walls, it sends you spinning. You have no choice. You hear laughter.
don't know who that is, get off my lawn. Susie and the Banshees. No, I don't know what that... Oh, we heard Dan Burn before that. Yeah, I think it was Strix saying in the chat room, you know, I hear the one about North Korea executing the fortune tellers. Yeah, if I'd remembered that, I would have had that lined up here, but I just say thanks Trump when I hear that. You know, remember everybody used to say thanks Obama for everything, man. I thank Trump for emboldening those fucking people. The man has sided this country with dictators and scumbags all over the world because he's a fucking dictator and a scumbag. If you don't like it, fuck you. That's my fucking opinion on that. Let's see. Okay, yeah. A lot going on in the chat room tonight. My goodness, people. I can't keep up with all that, so I got some other stories here. Let's see. The fight to end witch hunts continues. April 14th, coming from the wildhunt.org. This one always gets me because I have students all over the world, and I often have students in parts of Africa, and I often have students in India. And these are some of the places they still persecute witches. Now, it's easier for me to be out and in your face here in America. I mean, even in psycho-Christian dominated America. I mean, for now, you know, at least until some fool steps up and says it is their strongly held religious belief not to suffer a witch to live, then that'll be made legal. At least until that happens, you know, we got it pretty open here. But, you know, in some of the places where my students reside, they could get killed for their practices. And that always kind of trips me out, that they're learning from me, who's in a place that's, you know, so open still. I mean, I'm at least Hollywood. You know, when we're in California, it would take a long time for them to reach us. But still, very different all over the world. Witch is still a bad word. It means bad things. There's been no PR work done in some of those places. So let's see. Every year, the South African Pagan Rights Alliance Touchstone Advocacy runs a 30-day campaign to end witch hunts and the accusations of witchcraft. In South Africa this year, the campaign runs from March 29th to April 27th. The importance of the campaign like this cannot be overstated. SAPRA's leadership with this campaign powerfully responds to critical worldwide need for greater public awareness, education, advocacy against witch hunts that charges culture and ultimately saves lives, or changes culture. The effects of being accused of practicing witchcraft can be devastating, even when it does not result in the death of the accused. Their lives are turned upside down. South Africa, like other African countries, faces a largely unacknowledged internal refugee crisis as victims of witchcraft accusation who survive assault are expelled from their communities by community leaders, traditional leaders, and tribal leaders, sometimes after being tried in traditional courts and found guilty through divination of alleged but still unproven accusations of witchcraft activity. In South Africa, traditional courts occasionally adjudicate on matters relating to accusations of witchcraft. Existing customary laws and beliefs concerning witchcraft remain prejudicial to citizens who may be accused of being a witch or of practicing witchcraft. It's important to remember that accusations of witchcraft are almost never based on evidence and invariably lead to vigilante violence, including arson, assault, and murder against the accused. Accusations of witchcraft resulting witch hunts constitute a series of clearly identified crimes under both international and national law. In almost all cases of accusation of witchcraft, accused will not be offered access to legal defense against accusations, not be considered innocent until proven guilty, be driven from their communities, lose their homes as a result of arson, be forcibly separated from their families, loved ones be placed in custody by South African police services, ostensibly for their own safety, spending at least one night in a prison cell to avoid being attacked by members of their own community. They may never return to their homes and communities of birth, and being forced into unwilling exile in unofficial and unacknowledged refugee camps. By being denied access, counseling, and restorative justice, the living victims of accusation refugees involving hatred and violence are currently not afforded any assistance, protection in South African government. Now, the issue of reparations comes up in our society here in America lately. African Americans wanting to get reparations for the times of slavery, which absolutely makes sense, and some people are doing that. And I would want to take nothing away from any of them for that. There are some other reparations that should happen here in America. Salem's a huge issue. When the Salem witch hunts happened, it was a clash between two communities over control of the communities. Like in America during World War II, people that turned in their Japanese neighbors and had them hauled off to camps got possession of their land. And typically they never got the land back. It's the same thing that happened in Salem. If you accused your neighbor of witchcraft, you got all their land and all their livestock. And they were hauled away for you. And a large portion of this did happen in America. And there's always been huge movements around, recognizing what happened in Salem and getting justice and people remembering all those people killed over the years. What about their land? What about their property? What about their livestock? What about the families that took their livestock? The ancestors of those families still exist. And those families have existed on the theft of pagan land during those times. Those people that turned in their neighbors and got all their neighbors' shit, those people should pay reparations to the pagan families as well. And I'm not taking anything back from the slaves. The slaves should get their reparations too, but other atrocities. And the fact that turning in your neighbor for witchcraft, even if they weren't a witch, allowed you to seize their land, their livestock, and all their property here in America. It happened. It happened on a huge scale in Salem, and a lot of people from a neighboring community got to take over another community, and the ancestors of those people are still alive. And I would like to see that in Salem. I would like to see a drive for that. It's like those people, those families that benefited from persecuting the other families and taking all their shit should pay reparations to those families for that. And I'm sure we're a long way from getting there. But it should happen. Hold on. Just stop. Sorry, I had to stop a dog from eating trash off of the floor. Let's see. Down dog. Okay. Let's see what else I got story-wise here. A blue... Oh, this one seemed kind of interesting. Long time ago, when the internet was not quite a thing, there was a thing called BBS. BBS systems were a primitive form of internet that only serious geeks were involved in. Nobody was involved in this. One of the first attempts to organize pagans that I saw was through these BBS systems. We were organizing before there was an internet, and there's a thing called the Pagan Information Network, which there is one now on Facebook, but I don't really think that they understand the history behind their name. Pagan Information Networks were BBS systems set up for pagans to communicate, post. We would email. Emails could take a week to get to somebody. You know, they hopped from one machine to another at midnight, and it took several hops for them to get to where they needed to go. But pagans were able to communicate back then. And back then, right around then, the Gulf War happened, and a bunch of pagans organized to do a mass spell to stop a war. And that was the first time in my lifetime I saw a mass organization of pagans to do a thing at the same time, or to cast a spell for the same purpose at the same time. In recent years, there's been the bindings of Trump, or the hexing of Trump. I outright hex him. Binding's not good enough for this particular situation. But these kind of ideas have gone on, and now people are expanding on this idea. And I saw this in this Blue Moon Magic for social justice and wise leadership, April 18th, 2019. There's an astrological blue moon to be celebrated Thursday, April 18th, 2019. I know the trolls use social justice warrior as an insult, but I'll take up the banner with pride. I've suggested to all my witches around the world that we might hold a special esbet this night to work this second cardinal spring lunar surge. Let's sow an extra seed for justice and equality. Let's empower the wise and trustworthy governance to be restored so that we can level the playing field and build up a more just society that will serve our future rather than clinging to the dying past. First of all, the moon is blue because it's the second full moon to occur while the sun is in Aries and the moon is in Libra. It is important. But wait, you say, my witches, Daily Planner doesn't mention this being a blue moon. That's because most almanacs and witchy planners are still naming moons based on the mistake in the Sky and Telescope magazines in 1946. That has zero to do with magic. Just forget which calendar month we're in. It matters which zodiac sign and season we're in. If you'd like to read my painfully detailed explanation of this reasoning, go read it at Blue Moon Debate, an astrological blue moon in Aries. All right, so people are proposing to work this new and blue moon, do some social justice magic. Absolutely. Yes, Lisa Schofield, there was a mass spell against Hitler too, and that the mass spell was conducted by Gerald Gardner and a lot of other people, witches all over England. And it was to cast a shield around England that Hitler could not land in England. There's a book called Lammas Night, which is a novel about this incident. In particular, in that particular novel, it was a government program to unite the covens to cast this spell in that book. I don't know how true that is. I believe it's fiction. It's fiction based on history. I have always noted, though, the Russians fought very hard in World War II, and the Russians had a huge amount of forces on the Japanese-facing side of the country, that at a certain point in the war, the Russians did not need those reserves. They received assurances that the Japanese were not going to invade that side of Russia. So they had a huge amount of reserves, so they were able to pull from that side of the country towards the front where Hitler was invading. And kudos to them. But there was this other thing that happened. There's this thing that happened in England, the spell that was cast, and true historians that study the war will note the early arrival of winter in Russia as being the key point. I think it was 3 months early. Three months, winter arrives early in Russia. Hitler's troops were not equipped for a Russian winter. Hitler clearly did not study Napoleon, who had the same problem when invading Russia in the winter. And the Russian winter crushes the Nazis. There's a huge amount of force of the Russians coming in from the other side of the country, all of their reserves coming. The Americans and the British are invading over in Normandy. That helps things because Hitler divides his forces, and the forces that he should have been sending to Russia, he instead diverted over towards Normandy, which was a mistake. He had more troops there that he could have. He diverted the wrong amount of troops from the Russian front, not realizing that the Russians had a huge reserve forces coming from the other side of the country for him. He missed that somehow. But the real thing that crushed him was the Russian winter, and the fact that his troops were not equipped or prepared for the Russian winter, which had come early. Now, a bunch of witches did this huge fucking spell in England against Hitler, and the main idea was to cast a shield around England so Hitler couldn't land. But one has to note, Mother Nature crushed Hitler. In addition to all the humans fighting him, Mother Nature kicked his fucking ass. And Hitler was using witchcraft. So some other witchcraft played into that. My God, 639? What is a shill? Okay, somebody tell her who a shill. Somebody tell her what a shill is. I gotta go do this other thing. Let's see. What do we got? I gotta do the Hex Fest thing. So coming up in November, we got the Conjure Galas coming again. A little too soon to plug those yet, but I hear them organizing. The Conjure Gala, Mile High Conjure Gala is going to be coming again in November. We'll start plugging that when we get a little closer. But sooner than that, goddamn, right around the corner is Hexfest. August 9th to the 11th, 2019. Hexfest, a weekend of witchery in old New Orleans. Join in the magic. Tales of the magic of the crescent city of New Orleans stretch back over the centuries. It is an enigmatic place where voodoo, hoodoo, witchcraft, and even Christianity blend at the crossroads of spiritual power. On August 9th to the 11th, 2019, Brian Kane, Christian Day, and the Witches of New Orleans present Hexfest, a weekend of witchery held in the heart of the historic French Quarter. The conference opens with a riverboat ritual and dinner held on an authentic steamboat in the Mississippi River, followed by 2 full days of workshops. Whoops. I clicked on something wrong there. Oh, there we go. Ritual workshops, drumming, and ritual at the Bourbons Orleans Hotel, a venue riddled with a history of hauntings. Hexfest has gathered witches, root workers, voodoo priests, and other magical teachers from within New Orleans and around the world to offer their time-honored wisdom. Between workshops, attendees will love the magical shopping in our on-site vending hall, where you can purchase powerful ritual tools, signed books, exquisite jewelry, and spellcrafts, handmade by true practitioners. The presenters for the 2019 Hexfest hail from across the spectrum of witchcraft and magic, and include, but are not limited to, Brian Kane, Christian Day, Austin Shippey, Byron Ballard, Carrie Crow, Christine Steffens, Dorothy Morrison, the Dragon Ritual Drummers, Fiona Horn, Hoodoo Sen Moise, Lady Rhea, Laura Tempest Zakroff, Michael Carell, Melissa Mayhem, Patricia Telesco, Rosemary Ellen Gilly, Sally Ann Glassman, Sandra Maria Wright, Sen Elias, Sarita Deste, Star Cassis, Star Ravenhawk, Witch Doctor Utu, and Yeshe Matthews. Yes, Hexfest. And my first time there, I thought, why not rock that shit? Michael Carell will be teaching 3 workshops. And they're standalone workshops. You can take the workshop, you can take the second one, you cannot take the second one. Doesn't matter. But let's see. See, they have all this fixed. Saturday, August 10th, 10:45 a.m. at the St. Mary Salon. Uncle Birch, Michael Carell, myself, teaching magical warfare, laying plans. Sunday, August 11th, 10:45 a.m. at the St. Mary Salon, magical warfare, preparing for battle. So I got 2 of them on August 11th. I got Magical Warfare, Crush the Enemy, August 11th, 3:15 p.m. at the St. Mary Salon. And, okay, they fixed it. As Marta noticed it last time when I was reading it. We told them what was messed up. This was all messed up last time. But 5 p.m., August 11th, Sunday, I'm on a panel discussion. Appropriation versus appreciation in magical practice. And that's at the St. Anne College, August 11th at 5 p.m. Hexfest, man. I am so looking forward to meeting all these people. I hope some of the workshops that I want to see aren't happening during my workshops. I want to see most of these people. And it'd be our first time presenting at something like this. Me and Marta's first time to New Orleans. Gods, it's going to be a good time. You need to get out to Hexfest, man. And you just tell them you're there to see Uncle Birch, man. I need to get my plugs on this, man. I need to get my credits on this so they'll invite me back next year. But go to hexfest.com. Hexfest.com. Get your tickets. They selling fast, man. This one is an epic lineup. Not just me. It's an epic lineup, man. This shit's going to sell out. You need to check this out. All right, let's see if I can get through one more story. We're like close to the end of the show here. Let's see. What was this one? All right. I thought this one was kind of interesting because it comes up all the time. Apparently so many people don't know it, but I got this. This is Patheos Pagan from Christopher Drysdale. April 14th, grounding for beginners. Grounding is a skill that should not be ignored. The word itself is magical code for remembering who we are at the deepest level. It is a practice that grows with time, fostering inner balance and eventually combining with other techniques to become a foundation of calmness, awareness, patience, courage. Magic without grounding is like lifting something heavy without proper form. You might have the natural strength to succeed, or you might not. In either way, you're taking a risk of injuring yourself on the way to your goal. Let's see, the first step in learning the magic, gaining access to your spirit, that requires building a bridge between your everyday mind and spirit. You're all born with this bridge. Start simple. Begin by learning grounding. The first step is to sit or lie down calmly with a few external distractions as possible. As with learning the basics of meditation, you allow your body to relax and take a breath. However, as you breathe and flow in your body, allowing your attention to move through each part. As you move your awareness to each location, you can move through 3 phases. As you say other words, bring your awareness to that location. Moving your awareness through your body generally leads to the feeling of well-being and relaxation. With each breath, move your attention to a different part of the body, taking note of how you're feeling in each point. When the going gets tough, as you ground in your body, the most likely that memory is raising in your mind if this happens. So these are all very good techniques. Lying on the ground, putting the palms against the ground, the right hand, the left hand flat against the ground. Psychic arc welding, we used to call that. Instant grounding. Now, there's lots of ways to ground. You should research those on your own. But one of the things that I've always come on with this is, the classic ritual structure that we were all raised with through Wicca and stuff. It's not bad. I learned a long time ago in activism, eating and drinking together. It's important for families. It's important for covens. It's a bonding experience beyond any bonding experience, and that is the cakes and wine ritual that is commonly found in Wicca. And it's often used in a lot of witchcraft too. It's the middle point. It usually is after you've done the magic. We drink a little, we eat a little, we send it around the room, we talk about stuff, we tell jokes, whatever. It's grounding. Grounding automatically happens when you eat or drink. Back in the day when vesseling was so common, sometimes people embodying the spirit of the god or the goddess would go a little too far. They would become possessed almost. And the way to get them down from that state always was give them something to eat and to drink. Eating and drinking causes grounding without all of the ritual, without the visualization, without the white light, without the roots. Grounding happens. Eat something. Drink something if you need to ground. And you can do all that other stuff too. You do all that visualization, all that thing. Yes, breaking bread together. Yes, and that's what they call it, breaking bread together. It's a communal ritual that goes extremely far back. It's important for groups. I learned that from a Native American woman when I was working with Earth First. And somehow, I had many jobs in Earth First, but one year I got involved with these people and it became my job to set up the kitchen. First, we went out shopping and bought a truckload of food. We had the stove and all that stuff. And my job at each base camp that we went to was the first thing to set up the kitchen. Food and drink for all of the tribes. It grounds the tribes. It gives the tribes strength to do what they need to do. But the bonding ritual that happens between the members of the tribe by, like somebody just said in the chat room, breaking bread together cannot be overlooked. All cultures have this. Eating and drinking together gets us past most things. It's extremely important for families. In my own family, we've had to revisit that. It's like got so involved, sitting down watching TV and being on our phones or something. We'll sit over there on the couch and have some food over there. It's important to sit down at the dinner table as a family and break bread together. It is a bonding experience that cannot be overexpressed, but magically speaking, it is grounding. So family speaking, we're all grounding together. We are all grounding at the same time. Hopefully we're eating the same foods. That's important too. It's part of the bonding experience. It's kind of hard for us sometimes. Our kid has, different eating practices. I'll make pasta and he doesn't like the red sauce. I have to make him pasta with butter on it or something like that. It's almost the same food that we're sitting down. But the bonding experience, the family experience, that's what's important in that. And a coven traditionally was supposed to operate as a family, but better. A family, but bigger. Grounding, breaking bread. It's important. 6:52, people. I have read my news. I've hosted an entire show. Well, Marta jumped in too. She's busy over here, but she did contribute too. But we had no material, and it didn't stop us at all. The show went on. That's Widdershins. No matter what we do it. And it's been a great crowd. Thank you for joining us. Catch us in the archives. Check out the Widdershins Book Club. I think if you just look up Widdershins Book Club on Facebook, a book club has started around the show, studying the books that we recommend on the show, or authors that we have on the show. Working on a new guest. I think we have her signed up for the 23rd of April right now. Patti Negri's coming on the show. And here in Hollywood, big name, the Hollywood psychic, the Hollywood medium. She's been on shows, been on Ghost Hunters a lot, on Travel Channel, and a bunch of other shows. She seems to spend most of her time on the red carpet, as far as I see from Facebook. But one of our neighbors, it looks like going to be the first live guest in the Widdershins studio. Everybody that we've ever had on Widdershins has Skyped in because they live in different places. But Patty's really close by, so we're working on. I think we have it tentatively set for the 23rd. She's got a new book coming out. She's got a whole bunch of stuff that she does. So you people in the book club better get to reading. I think you're backlogged. You still need to get Darren Taylor's books from the last show, and hey, get cracking on that book reading in the book club, man. Because in this respect, we're like Oprah, telling you what to read. It'll be a while before we can give you a free call, but we're working on that too. We'll be on Widdershins one day. It's like, you get a car, and you get a car. Well, it's someday we're going to be that big, man. But right now, we tell you what to read. And friend of ours, neighbor of ours, Hollywood, one of the Hollywood Witch, not the Hollywood Witch, because we had her on the show too, but one of the Hollywood witches that are large players around our neighborhood. Gonna have her on the show. I don't know what her book's called offhand. I just briefly saw it at a meeting the other night, but we'll have information on there. Check us out at Widdershins Radio on Facebook. Check our Facebook page. You can get a hold of us at widdershinsradio@gmail.com. For whatever you want to suggest to the show, or comments to the show, or something you want us to plug on the show. You got an event, you got a group, you got something going on, check it out. You find me at gumroad.com/witchschool, which is, of course, WITCHSKEWL. I am in the midst of my teaching frenzy right now. I'm starting again my year-in-a-day courses in witchcraft. I have one that just started in March. I have another one starting May 1st. You can find details on that, if it sounds like something you want to do, on my Facebook or on my YouTube page, which is Freakphil 1309. It's FREAKPHIL, and the number's 1309. We got a video describing that. Class is going to open April 29th, Beltane Eve, and we'll really begin a couple days into May. I'm thinking about May 3rd is when the first class will come out. But in order to let everybody in that wants to get in, we got to have a couple days of open sign up, because there's been a huge demand for the second class. So there's also get into those. Which school started their own study group? We'll probably see about letting the second class into that one too. A lot going on surrounding Widdershins and Witch School, and check it all out. Widdershins, we're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. and any other damn time we want to do. You need to follow, and then you'll know where we are, when we are, what we're doing, that kind of thing. Thank you for joining us, and we'll gonna see you next week.
And all the harm I've ever and all the sweethearts there I had, they wished me one more day to stay. But since it falls into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I gently rise and stop